Happy Saturday. Good morning. Thank you for making us a part of your holiday weekend. Christmas is right around the corner. It is the Saturday show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza. As always, Alex Napoles with me. Alex, how we doing, man?
Happy holidays, man. It feels good to be, to have Christmas right around the corner and to be able to enjoy some downtime, spend some time with family, and most importantly, open some presents.
Yeah, I love Christmas, and
Absolutely.
I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a fun one this year. I'm hoping we get some snow.
Hopefully.
I hate when we have Christmas with no snow. It doesn't feel the same.
No.
So, there's nothing like waking up, looking outside, and it's just a winter wonderland.
I want to know how kids in California do it when they wake up and they never have snow for Christmas.
Yeah, no, it must.
I don't
feel
think
really
I
weird.
could ever do that. I need to have snow.
Definitely. It just, like I said, it doesn't feel the same if there's no snow. And all the decorations look cool and stuff. We've got a great Christmas tree here in the studio. They set this up earlier in the week, and you need the snow to complete everything. So, but yeah, right around the corner.
Couldn't agree more.
Your week was good though?
Week was good. I think for me, the highlight of the week is probably. Oh man, I really didn't do much this week. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think I have a highlight, Christian.
That's fine.
I did. I mostly did work, and I was resting a little bit because I wasn't feeling too well this week.
It's that time of the year.
Yeah,
It is. Well, hopefully you feel better
Thanks,
by next week.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
And we do have some downtime. Luckily, this is the last, I guess, show for the station until next Friday. We have all week off. We're going to be doing some broadcasts throughout the week. I know we've got a couple Jazz games, couple hockey games. The Idaho Potato Bowl, we're going to carry that game on Monday. So that's going to be cool. But as far as live programming, we're off. So shout out to the great bosses here and our management for allowing that to happen. That's
shout
awesome.
Out Lloyd Cole.
Yeah.
Thanks for the time off, buddy.
Well, let's get into some things, Alex, because it's been kind of a crazy couple weeks, especially in the college football world. I guess even going back to when the transfer portal opened. And it's just been absolute chaos. And we've seen a lot of people complaining. I know Alabama's athletic director was complaining about schools poaching his players.
He wasn't just complaining, Christian. He was begging the donors to donate more. He was complaining and begging for more money because Alabama's players are getting poached in the transfer portal.
Well, and this is how the outside world, and by outside world, I mean everybody except Alabama, feels about it. Alabama has been paying players since college football started. And there's no hard concrete evidence available at the ready, but everybody knows that. And for Alabama to sit here and act like that's not true, it's absolutely ridiculous. So really, they're complaining about the playing field being even now, which I think it's soft.
Did you see last night Shane Gillis calling out Nick
Shane,
Saban to his face?
Yes, Shane Gillis was on the ESPN Game Day panel yesterday as the guest picker.
Yes.
He's a big Notre Dame guy. Of course, Notre Dame beat Indiana last night. Fun game. But yeah, Shane Gillis, comedian, was making fun of Nick Saban to his face, and Nick Saban was pretty bugged by it. So that was funny. But no, Alabama had this advantage because they, like I said, they've been doing it forever, and schools couldn't keep up with everything being unchecked. But now that, things are still unchecked, but at least now you can present money and present other things without it being illegal. So now that everybody else can do that, Alabama does not have that advantage anymore, and they're hurt by it.
I think, you look at the players that, I think, earlier in the week, Ryan Williams, the star receiver for Alabama, jumped in the transfer portal, which I think came to a shock to a lot of people considering the season that he had. The true freshman wide receiver who scored who had a couple of phenomenal touchdowns against Georgia in that wild game earlier in the season. I don't think a lot of people expected him to jump into the portal, but now that he's in the portal, Alabama's going out and saying, "Oh, we need more money. Oh, we need to,
right,
be able to play these players more to retain our own players." But it's like, welcome to the wild, wild west, man.
Exactly.
There is no regulation. There is no oversight. You can basically do whatever you want to do in this day and age of college football.
And what's funny about you talk about the shock and everything. I want to talk about Cam Calhoun, a local player,
Yes.
Utah corner. He, not long after the season had ended, he made all these posts saying, Utah man, am I? I'm staying here. The portal opened, and he was even trying to recruit players to Utah. He was tagging them on social media saying, hey, come here, come play. It sounded like he was ready to be a cornerstone for this Utah football program going forward. Then all of a sudden, less than a week after he tweeted, Utah man, am I? I'm here to stay, whatever, he announced he was entering the transfer portal. And guess where he transferred to?
I think Alabama, right?
It was Alabama.
Oh, man.
So how ironic, right?
I think, yes, like you mentioned, Cam Calhoun, big shock, but he was a freshman this year, right? He's still on the younger side, and he had a tremendous season. He came up and filled in and played a big role on that defense in the middle of some injuries to Cannon Johnson specifically. And when a team sees a guy like that, maybe Cam Calhoun wasn't necessarily in the portal, but then somebody came a knocking and said, "Hey,
Right.
if you jump into the portal and you come take a look at what we got, we can offer you X amount." And that's just what I think happened, right? That's just what you're led to believe to happen because of what we saw unfold on social media. Like you mentioned, Utah man, am I actively recruiting players to try to come to join him at Utah?
Then all of a sudden he's not here.
And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm in the transfer portal.
And that is the hard part about what can't be regulated, right? I mean, there's no way of knowing how players are getting contacted, who's contacting players, unless you basically tap everybody's phone.
There
with
has
the
to be
FBI.
some regulation, though.
Right, there has to be, there should be, but we're talking about thousands and thousands of kids here. And unfortunately, right now, there's no way to stop that. Because yes, it does seem a little fishy when all of a sudden, this dude enters the portal. And, he took a visit with BYU. He took a visit with a few other schools. So maybe those were just trying to throw people off the tail because it would look even more fishy if he immediately went to Alabama. But regardless, it's sad because Utah is one of those programs where they're never going to have the resources. I mean, you talk about Alabama complaining about not having the NIL funds and the resources. Utah, I mean, is barely scraping by, especially compared to BYU now down the road. I mean, goodness, we've seen the numbers for AJ DeBonsa, and we know that not only on the basketball side, but BYU is stepping things up on the football side as well. So they've got all this money. Meanwhile, Utah, they're begging for change, and they're trying to make $1 out of a dime. And that's the world that the Utes live in right now. So unfortunately, they're always going to be behind when it comes to NIL funding, and they're really going to have to lock in when it comes to developing internally and being selective about who they choose to give their money to.
I've seen the idea of implementing a salary cap as far as NIL goes to kind of keep things even. I've seen a lot of talk about that on social media over the course of the last 2 weeks. But again, I think you just need regulation. You need somebody to come in and put their foot down and say, this is how we're going to do it. This is what's going to change. This is how we're going to make sure stuff like this doesn't happen. Because right now you can literally do whatever you want, and no one's going to care because there's no rules. There's no rules. There's no regulations. You can literally go out. And now even with some of the JUCO stuff happening, you can go out and you can just pitch out however much money you want to any player and just say, hey, come join our team. We're better.
I think a salary cap would be a step in the right direction. Obviously, that's not the end-all, be-all. It's not going to fix everything, but you're right. There is no regulation whatsoever right now.
But then when the salary cap comes into play, this is no longer college athletics.
No, but it hasn't been.
This is pro ball.
Right. It hasn't been. And I think the longer that people keep playing it off that way, I think they're just lying to themselves. And the reality is, as soon as it's like Pandora's box. As soon as it got opened up, there's no going back. And so I think it's time to just accept the fact that, this is professional athletics now. And I think, again, a salary cap would not fix everything, but it's one of the many steps that should be taken to help ensure that things are being regulated. Because, yeah, you've got some schools like, let's say, Ohio State talking about having $20 million in their NIL fund. And I don't know Utah's number, but I know it's nowhere near that. And I know there are different conferences, and maybe you do a different salary cap by conference. I don't know how it would work as far as the leagues go, but just spitballing ideas here. I mean, it's tough because I think very quickly, if things keep up like this right now, you're going to quickly see a pretty large disparity between the haves and the have-nots as far as money goes.
Absolutely. You're going to see the big guys like Oregon, like Georgia, like Alabama, the big brands. They're going to be heads and shoulders above everybody else because everybody else can't keep up.
And you wanted to hear, you brought up Colorado State head coach Jay Norvell was talking about the transfer portal and some of the downsides of that. And I believe we have that ready to go. So here's Colorado State's head coach, Jay Norvell.
And these independent agents call these schools up that they know have money. And they say, what if Kevin gets in the portal? How much would you pay him? Oh, I'll pay him $150,000, and they'll go to the next school. What if Kevin got in the portal? What would you pay him? Oh, I'd give him $175. And then another school might say, oh, I'll give him $200. So now this independent agent DMs Kevin and says, call me, I got some deals for you. And then they talk, and he goes, if you get in the portal, I can get you $200,000. It's hard for a kid, when he hears that. So these kids are not thinking about getting in the portal, but when they have these people call them and say, if you get in the portal, I'll give you $200,000, And by the way, I'm going to take 15, 20% of that. So these guys are just stealing from these kids. An NFLPA agent gets 3%. A lot of these agents that are talking to all of our players, they're taking 10, 15, 20%. And that's really criminal, really. But that's what's going on in college football. And as much as we try to tell our players that and educate them, when somebody's offering you that kind of money, it's still hard for these kids, okay? That just kind of gives you an idea of what's happening, and it's unfortunate. And like I said, we talked to our top 26 kids. They all have been offered.
There needs to be regulation.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what we were talking about as far as speculation with maybe what might have happened to Cam Calhoun. These kids have no intention of entering the portal, and then somebody gets in their ear, whether it's an agent or some sort of representative from another school, and they're like, hey, check out all this money we can get you. And I don't blame the kids at all because it's money. I mean, this is life-changing money.
Exactly.
They say about 1% of D1 football players go pro, right? So for the other 99%, this is money that they will not be able to make once they leave college football.
Yeah.
And so I don't blame them 1 second for for choosing to go somewhere where they have the opportunity to make this kind of money.
It would be very hard if somebody came up to you and waved this $200,000 check in your face and said, hey, come play for us.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you mentioned, it's money that if you don't go pro, you're probably never going to see again. And so when somebody comes at you, throwing this money at you and saying, hey, I can get you this amount in your NIL fund, you're going to be tempted to take it because quite frankly,
that's how it is.
Money is money.
Money is money. That's. And so that kind of leads into the other stuff that we've seen happen this week. Basically, Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia was granted an injunction by a judge. Long story short, saying that JUCO years will not count towards NCAA eligibility because he didn't have the opportunity to earn NIL, name, image, and likeness while he was at the JUCO. Now, this specific ruling right now only pertains to Diego Pavia, but of course, again, it's going to change very quickly. We're going to see things change for other athletes, other student athletes that have played at the JUCO level, because now they're going to say, how come that only applies to him and why not me, and yada, yada, yada. We even have a local example, Russell Faison, the standout Utah State running back. He had previously announced that he was going to enter the NFL draft, try to go pro because his eligibility was up. But once this ruling came out, he says, hey, I spent a couple years at Snow. I spent some JUCO years. Where's my eligibility? So his agent contacted On3 Sports, and there was a report that came out that said he is going to enter the transfer portal now. He's not coming back to Utah State. He's going to enter the transfer portal and try to improve his draft stock.
Might as well take advantage of the opportunity you're adults.
And again, because, I mean, Faison was going to go pro. I have no doubt about that. I think he could have been maybe a round 3 draft pick. It sounds like scouts kind of had him in the maybe later rounds, 6th or 7th. Regardless, though, again, if you're not going to go pro, maybe in Diego Pavia's case, why not try to milk this for as much as you can? I don't blame the kids whatsoever, because they're never going to have this opportunity again.
100%. And, you know, obviously right now this whole JUCO situation only applies to Pavia. There's still a whole legal battle that's going to happen before the floodgates officially open for other guys like Faison to get more eligibility. Maybe a little bit premature, but it seems like we're heading in that direction of, hey, if you play JUCO, you're going to be able to play more. You're going to have more eligibility at the D1 level. But
then because there's no regulation,
there you go.
How do you stop a kid from, essentially JUCO becomes a developmental league for the NCAA,
yes,
because the NCAA is now essentially a professional league. So the JUCO would then become the minor league to D1 football.
Which I think there's positives, but there's also a lot of negatives.
Well, there is, because of the new scholarship limit. Teams are allowed 10 fewer walk-on spots.
Yep.
And so you're going to see a lot of that trickle-down effect of, okay, a lot of the kids that were in the P5 conferences walking on are now going to be fighting for scholarships at the Mountain West level. A lot of the people fighting for spots as walk-ons on the Mountain West level are going to be going to the FCS and so on and so forth. So it is a trickle-down effect. But then you look at the JUCO teams, and their goal is to be competitive and to win, not to, develop players. They don't care about that. So if you're a JUCO team and you have to choose between a kid fresh out of high school or a kid that is borderline, FCS or Mountain West level, right? Who's going to give you a better chance at competing at the JUCO level, right? You're obviously going to go with the older kid who couldn't make it on somewhere, so he's going to try and play at the JUCO level because that doesn't count towards his eligibility.
Yeah, absolutely. But, and that's one of the negative things, right? I think this is going to negatively impact high school recruits, right? If you have the choice of picking up a true freshman or somebody who's just coming out of the JUCO, maybe played a year or something at JUCO, and his eligibility, right, didn't count, you're going to want the guy who has more experience playing at the college level.
More often than not, yeah.
So, yes, there's a lot of negative impact for high school recruits, but, on the positive side, if there's this guy who's just on the fringe, but you don't really have a roster spot for him, but you think you see the potential and you want to see him develop a little bit more, if he takes the JUCO route, that eligibility doesn't count. You kind of, you keep an eye on him while he's on JUCO, and then as soon as you feel like he's kind of developed a little bit more and grown a little bit more, you say, hey, we want you at our program.
Right, essentially like the minor league.
Exactly.
But the only difference here is, JUCOs will not be assigned yet. Maybe this is something that changes, but it's not like there's each
Why not?
JUCO team is going to be a farm team
Why
for
not?
a certain. That would be crazy, wouldn't it?
It would be crazy.
But because then, yeah, you have, that's a risk that teams will take, telling this kid like, hey, go play JUCO, then we'll see how you come out after. But then it's going to be a bidding war for these student athletes. So it's just crazy stuff, man. They're trying to fix problems that didn't need to be fixed. And it's like, you can't.
I don't even think they're fixing problems.
Right. So that's the thing is, by quote unquote fixing things, they're just opening up more and more and more. And it's chaos. And, the term that fits it best, as you said earlier, Wild Wild West, there's absolutely no regulation. People can pull things out of their butt and say, hey, I deserve more eligibility because of this, because of this. Like, it's crazy. And we're going to be looking at 26-year-old people, 26. I'm not even going to call them kids. They're grown men.
Yeah.
At that point, playing college football, and it's really weird because college is supposed to be a stepping stone to prepare you for the adult world. But
I wonder how the NFL feels about all this.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there's going to be still lots of players that play their 3 years and move on to the league. And it's similar to the walk-on rule that we were just talking about. I mean, yes, there are going to be consequences for people that were borderline at the bottom of the roster, but the kids that won't be affected, I mean, are the 4- and 5-star kids, right? So the draft prospects that are affected by this stuff are maybe going to be, the day 3 guys, the Rasul Faisons of the world. But I mean, the people that that are going to be drafted on day 1 and day 2, I mean, I don't think they're really going to be affected. Maybe we're going to start seeing more older players sneaking their way up on the draft boards, similar to what we've seen in the NBA, because you've got lots of these COVID seniors kind of dominating college basketball right now. So you've got like the Dalton Connects of the world sneaking into the first round of the NBA draft and then providing an immediate impact. So maybe you see, I guess, a few more older prospects, but I honestly don't know if it will impact the NFL that much. But that's a good point. I mean, again, it's a trickle-down effect. Everybody who is involved with this at any level is impacted.
Absolutely. And I will say, there is a lot of negatives. There is a lot of things that I think need to be regulated, a lot of things that need to change. But I think while the system is set up the way that it is, take advantage of it. And I just want to throw out there that I think Utah has done a good job so far of taking advantage of what's been dealt at the moment.
Yeah, right. They can't control. I mean, they can control, but they can't control how much money they have, right? Like, of course, if there were the same level of donors that BYU has, Utah would definitely take that. But right now, the reality is that they don't have that. So they have to play with the hand that they were dealt. And at least in the first couple of years of this NIL roller coaster, they have been doing a good job of staying competitive as far as, how they can.
Absolutely. I've been impressed with the transfer class that they've been able to put together so far.
Well, this year specifically, and it's funny because you see some banter back and forth online. Utah's transfer portal ranking is 15th in the country. BYU's is 63rd. Well, that's because BYU's not dipping into the portal.
No,
of course.
BYU still has a game, guys.
Right. Of course their portal ranking is not going to be as high because they're not getting anybody. Like their roster
they're not
is
focused on that. They're focused on Deion Sanders.
They're focused on something completely else. But you're right. Utah got what sounds like their top 2 targets from the transfer portal in Devin Dampier and Wayshawn Sanders, quarterback and running back, respectively. So we'll see how that translates to on-the-field product. But it sounds like we're talking about all their limited funds. It sounds like they have enough to still lure kids in. So
absolutely,
we'll see how that goes. It is time for a break. Alex, on the other side, I want to put our Santa hats on. We're going to be giving gifts out.
Oh, no.
Where it's the season of giving. I've got a fun little segment coming up next. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It is Christmas time, Alex, and we are being blessed with tons and tons of gifts. Some people are saying that this is the best sports day of the year. Have you heard that?
Today specifically?
Yeah, here's the lineup that we have
Yes.
for today. We have 2 NFL games, 3 college football playoff games, big college basketball games, 12 NBA games, 11 NHL games, some soccer, some boxing. It's a big day.
It is a huge day.
But of course, I mean, football is what people care about the most.
Absolutely.
We've got SMU at Penn State going on right now. Later, we're going to have the Texans at the Chiefs. We're going to have Clemson at Texas. We're going to have the Steelers at the Ravens. And then Tennessee at Ohio State, wrapping things up tonight. So it is a big, big day of football. And can't wait, because what else do we have to do today, right?
No, today is one of those perfect days where if you are, finishing up your Christmas shopping, you get home, get the gifts, start wrapping them right in front of your TV.
Yes.
And just watch some football, man.
Exactly.
It's perfect. The perfect Saturday.
I am excited.
I'm looking forward to it.
So, Alex, I teased for this segment, I want to do a fun little exercise. I said we're going to put our Santa hats on, okay? We are going to give some gifts to our local teams here if we wear Santa. And to help illustrate the rules, I'll go first. Okay?
All right.
So if I was Santa, I would gift to the Jazz the number 1 overall draft pick for next year.
That would not be a bad gift to receive, right? I think a lot of the Jazz fan base, and I think even the organization, they're yearning, they're desperately wanting that number 1 overall pick.
It's what it's all about, right?
It's what it's all about. It's what this year is about for the Utah Jazz, and so that would be a tremendous gift to give.
Yeah, go get Cooper Flag. I mean, they're calling it a youth movement, seeing what they have in their young players right now. 3 of them are on the Salt Lake Stars. It's like right now only Keontae George and Walker Kessler are the only ones playing substantial minutes for the actual Jazz roster. So, how are you seeing what you have in your youth? It's about getting that number 1 pick, getting that franchise player that you can build your future around. It's presumably going to be Cooper Flag. I mean, I don't think the Jazz would be upset with the number 2 or number 3 pick. It seems like Bailey, Harper, BYU's Yegor Demine. Those are all guys that have the potential to be franchise players in the NBA. But again, the number 1 pick, Cooper Flag, that's what I would give to the Jazz if I was Santa.
If I was Santa, I would give a college football playoff berth to BYU.
Wow, okay. Nice.
That's probably where I'm going with this exercise. I thought BYU to go from 5-7 last season, missing out on a bowl game, to where they were this year. If they I think we had this conversation before. If they did not lose that game to Kansas, I think BYU would be playing today.
Oh, 1,000%. There's no doubt about it.
It's to be just that short of making history, of being a part of this first ever 12-team playoff. I think that would have been a phenomenal gift for BYU.
Yeah.
For their fan base, I think for everyone here everyone here in the state, I think it would have been awesome to see a team from Utah go represent our state in the college football playoff. That if I was Santa, I'd give them the gift of being part of the college football playoff.
Well, and how funny would it have been, right? We spent so much time in the offseason talking about, the Utes. The Utes are going to the playoff. Like, the Utes have the best chance of winning the Big 12 and yada, yada, yada. And to just pull the rug out and say, actually, it's BYU going to the playoff? Oh, man.
Yeah, that would have stung a little bit for the Utah fans.
Oh, that would have been so funny. But there's always next year for both teams, right? For both programs.
Yes, absolutely. For I think, looking at next year for BYU, it's going to be how do you improve on what has already been a tremendous season? How do you build on that, right? How do you go from 10 wins to potentially making it to that Big 12 championship game that you just barely missed? And, of course, the college football playoff. And then for Utah, it's how do you bounce back after having a 5-7 year, just like BYU did last season.
Yep. I will say the Alamo Bowl is a great consolation prize for these Cougs.
Absolutely.
I think everybody, not just BYU fans, I think everybody, even nationally, is pretty excited for this matchup because we saw BYU and we saw Colorado, and there's a lot of hype going into this game.
I think a lot of it has to do with Colorado being the opponent.
Yeah.
Honestly. I think if you were playing a Miami, I don't think we're having the same conversation of the hype around it. But I think it's because it's Colorado, because now it's a Heisman winner, it makes it just a little bit more exciting, not only for BYU fans, but at a national level and a national scale of how competitive and how good this Alamo Bowl is going to be.
Yeah, I think outside of the college football playoff, I think the Alamo Bowl is going to be one of the most watched bowl games. Just because Colorado always draws eyes. BYU has a lot of followers nationally, so it's going to be a fun game, but you're right. A playoff berth would be an excellent gift for the Cougs. The next gift I would give out is a playoff berth to the Utah Hockey Club. I think that's the next step for these guys. I think that would be exactly what fans here in Salt Lake City are wishing for. I mean, talk about a hot streak. These guys have won 4 games in a row now. I think they've won 7 road games in a row. Dylan Guenther is looking like a star. He has played phenomenal as of late. And talking about the environment that we saw the other night, Ryan Smith gave away a bunch of free tickets and to the game against Vancouver. And all that they were talking about in the postgame was just how much fun, how crazy the environment was at Delta Center, right? And the players loved it. Coach Tourney, Coach Bear talking about how much that helps the team. So I'm just trying to imagine what a playoff game, what a Stanley Cup playoff game would look like here in Salt Lake City. And I think that is probably on Utah Hockey Club's wish list. I know they tried to play it coy, talking about, their goal isn't to make the playoffs this year. They're going to have some ups and downs. But, I mean, you look at this team over the last month, and they have really hit their stride. They are playing with a ton of confidence. And I think a playoff game here in Salt Lake City, it would be a gift not only to the hockey club, but to all the new hockey fans in the community. I think that would be so much fun.
Wednesday night, when they played the Canucks, I remember wrapping up here, walking down into the parking garage, and the puck drop was probably like 20 minutes away. And I thought to myself, I should go to the game, right? I'm already here. It's right across the street. If I can find like a cheap enough ticket, I'm going to go and just enjoy some hockey. But then I was like, you know what? I don't want to go alone. I'm just going to go home and have some dinner. Boy, do I regret it.
I know.
Oh, man. That overtime winner from Sergachev, man.
Dude, Sergachev and Guenther, I mean, all these players are really just, establishing themselves here in Salt Lake City, here in Utah. It's so much fun. It is so much fun. And then they follow it up, getting a little bit of revenge against the Minnesota Wild last night, 2-1. They didn't even need overtime. Dylan Guenther scored both goals. I mean, it's must-see product here in Salt Lake. And again, to reiterate, a playoff game is just a whole nother level of excitement, and I need it. I need it.
4 straight for the Utah Hockey Club. Phenomenal. 7 straight on the road. Absolutely incredible. And I think we're seeing a little bit of a shift now, right? You said that they were being a little coy and just saying, "Oh, we're developing this year, whatever." But I think we're starting to see a shift, Christian. I think it's starting to be like, "Hey, we might actually have a shot at making this. We might actually be able to make a playoff game."
It's hard not to feel that way.
And so I think the tides have shifted a little bit. And I think not only is the fan base starting to believe that they can make it to the playoffs, but I think that the team itself and the organization itself is starting to say, "Hey, we might have something here." And I think that's amazing to see because we're just seeing this blossom right in front of our eyes.
It's been great to see this team. I mean, obviously they started out hot, and you're going to expect that because they're playing in front of fans that they did not have last year. So they start out hot, but then they entered kind of the slow period where, yes, they're still a young team. They're still figuring things out and trying to find their groove, trying to find their way in the NHL. But again, the confidence thing that we have seen over the past month, it's just building and building. And I've said this before, it's palpable. Like you can feel it when you watch these games. Like they are figuring things out, and they're having a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I think I got one more. If I were Santa, I would give Chicho Arango his early season form back for next year and to finish the whole year completely as he started it this last year. Because, man, how derailed did Real Salt season get after Chicho Arango lost his touch?
I'm glad that you bring that up because RSL is something that has not been on our minds since, essentially they were eliminated from playoffs. But even before then, the end of the season was just hard. It was hard to watch because they were just struggling, and in large part due to Chicho Arango not playing at the level that he was in the first half of the season. So if he could put that together for a full year, I mean, we talked about it a ton. He was on pace to smash the club record for goals in a year, and he just fell apart. It just came to a screeching halt.
Oh, absolutely. Just stopped cold, and definitely missed having that early season Chicho down the stretch, and especially in the playoffs, man. Minnesota was a team that Real Salt could not score on this season. And then you saw that in the first round of the playoffs, right? You get eliminated by the 6th seed in Minnesota just because of your inability to score. And I think obviously if you got to look at your strikers, you got to look at your big attackers and ask a little bit more of them, right? Diego Luna, I think, did a good job of stepping up down the stretch, but in that playoff game, a lot of Real Salt's attack went missing, and I think if I were Santa, I'd just give them that spark back that we saw at the early parts of the season.
Well, and what we saw from Chicho, I mean, he was, and I'm not, no hyperbole here, he was playing like one of the best players in the MLS.
Oh, absolutely.
And again, it literally disappeared out of thin air, and it was one of the weirdest things that we've seen, especially here locally, to just be playing at that level and then for it to all of a sudden just stop. So, yeah, I think Chicho would love that gift. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great one, Alex. Look at you.
I think, if I were saying, I'd probably sprinkle in a little MLS Cup in there, but
yeah,
we'll Rouse Lake will get there.
There we go.
Soon.
Let's hope so. We're going to do technical fouls on the other side. We've got a couple funny ones this week. Of course, the Falcons are getting a technical foul for how they've handled their quarterback situation. We'll talk about that and more coming up next. This is the Saturday Show 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
If you're coming from the street with dirty shoes on your feet, that's a technical foul. If you switch the radio to some modern music show, that's a technical foul. If you touch the thermostat,
you'll get hit with a bat.
'Cause that's a technical foul.
You will feel my wrath.
That's a technical foul.
Personal foul, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
A technical foul.
Welcome back to the Saturday Show 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles. It is time for our technical fouls segment. In this segment, we like to reward people for some of the sillier, stupider things that we see in sports. I'll start things off today, Alex. I want to give a technical foul to the Atlanta Falcons for the way they handled their quarterback situation this past offseason. They brought Kirk Cousins in as a free agent in March. Of course, he spent a lot of time with the Vikings, did some good there, but he was never excellent. And tore his Achilles last year. That's the big thing. He tore his Achilles, missed most of last season, yet the Falcons rewarded him at age 36, coming off an Achilles tear, with a 4-year, $110 million contract. Which, sure, if you want to take a flyer on that, that's fine. But then in April, they turn around and draft Michael Penix Jr., 8th overall. 8th overall. And it's like, okay, what is it? Do you want Kirk Cousins to be your quarterback for the next 4 years because you're paying him? Or do you want the 24-year-old rookie to sit, for 4 years behind Kirk Cousins? Like, what is the plan here? I don't get it. Anyways, Kirk Cousins has struggled as of late. I mean, struggle is putting it nicely. The Falcons have decided that they're going to bench him. Not only bench him, but now they're saying they're going to cut him before his $10 million roster bonus kicks in. So they're just burning money away.
Wild. How poorly was this whole Kirk Cousins situation judged by the Falcons organization?
Oh, insanely poor. I mean, it's been a huge mismanagement of money. And I saw a post earlier talking about we've got to stop giving contracts to these players before they even take a snap with their new team. I mean, looking at some recent examples of quarterbacks alone, Deshaun Watson got a huge, unprecedented contract before he played for the Browns. Look at that. Look at how that turned out.
Ugh.
Russell Wilson, the Broncos gave him a huge deal before he took a snap with the team. Look at how that turned out. And then now Kirk Cousins. I want to pull up his recent games.
I think he has 1 touchdown in the last 5 or 6 games. We'll confirm.
Last 5 games, he has 1 touchdown, 9 interceptions.
9
9 interceptions to 1 touchdown in his last 5 games.
Wow.
Yeah. 4 of those came against the Chargers on December 1st. So, yeah, he's been atrocious.
I will say, though, he didn't start the year terrible.
Week 1 was bad. Week 1 had me really worried, but then he really picked things up. And let's say weeks 2 through 7, he was good.
Yeah, he went on a pretty good run there for a little bit, but now all of a sudden, where Kirk Cousins is playing like Will Levis.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened either, but I want to give him a little bit like wiggle room because I get, wanting to lock down Kirk, give him a big deal because yes, it's a risky play to give a guy coming off an Achilles, an older guy coming off an Achilles, this big of a contract. But for a moment there, it looked like it was going to work out. It looked like we were going to have a Rodgers Love situation where Kirk was going to be your starter, Penix was going to learn under Kirk, and eventually the reins would be handed to Michael Penix Jr. Which again, in a perfect world, that would have been fine.
That's best case scenario.
But now he's playing like one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL.
I think too many times NFL teams will say, oh, yeah, this is how things are going to work out, and they look at best case scenario. Where in reality, you've got to look at the chances of, okay, what are the chances that this 36-year-old coming off an Achilles tear who was never really a top 10 quarterback, what are the chances that this doesn't work out? Well, those chances are pretty high, right? And so they had this plan, and if it would have all worked according to plan, it would have been fine. But right now they still owe Kirk Cousins a bunch of money. They're going to owe him a bunch of money over the next couple of seasons. So, I mean, shout out to Kirk, I guess, for working the system. And, he's been notorious at this through his whole career because he milked Washington for a bunch of money. He got an insane contract with the Vikings when they first brought him over. And then now at the Falcons again. His agent is smart. His agent is a good one.
Absolutely. I hope this isn't the last we see of Kirk. I like Kirk.
He's cool.
I hope somebody picks him up.
He's fine.
And he bounces back, but sucks to be the Falcons, man.
I don't care about I feel no sympathy for them at all.
How about Deontay Johnson, bro?
Yeah, well, and we talked about a similar situation last week. The Devondre Campbell with the 49ers refused to play, and this actually happened a couple weeks prior. Deontay Johnson, the Ravens traded for him mid-season, and same thing, they wanted him to go get in the game, and he said no, and they're cutting him now, right?
They are. He's been waived by the Ravens, and he will be up for waivers on Monday. And per Adam Schefter, they're saying potential landing spots will be the Chargers or the Chiefs.
Interesting. It is weird that there was so much hubbub with the 49ers player and nobody really cared about the Ravens player. Maybe people just don't like the 49ers, I guess. But, they suspended him specifically so he could not sign with another team and just go play in the playoffs.
And the Ravens are just cutting their losses.
Talking about the 49ers player. But, yeah, the Ravens now are okay with just cutting Deontay Johnson, and he will sign with the playoff team, it sounds like.
I just don't get it. You're coming from Carolina, who is a terrible team.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. They're bad. They've been pretty bad. You go to the Ravens, who is a contender. Why are you being a big baby?
Well, it's understandable to an extent because he has made a Pro Bowl. He's made a second team All-Pro, I believe, a few years ago. He's not one of the top 20 or 30 receivers in the league, but he's good.
Yeah, but if you're ring chasing, I don't think the Ravens is necessarily the worst spot to land at, right?
No. And that's the thing on the Ravens side. Why would you trade for this guy and then not use him?
Well, they wanted to use him. He didn't want to go in though.
Right, but I think the reason that he didn't want to go in is because there had been a few weeks already where he wasn't getting any targets, any catches. So it's a weird deal. It's a weird deal all around, and so maybe that's why the Ravens are being a little more sympathetic towards him. Is instead of suspending him, they're just saying, "Hey, this was our bad. We shouldn't have traded for you." I don't know, but it is a weird deal. So we'll see where Deontay Johnson ends up.
Lastly, I just want to real quick hit on Curt Cignetti, who, look, if you're going to go on national TV and you say that we beat the crap out of top 25 teams, you best be backing that up, sir.
Yeah.
You best be backing that up. They did not back it up. And now he looks a little bit like a clown.
Jake Hatch had a wonderful tweet. I'm trying to find it really quickly. I can't find it. I'll paraphrase. Essentially, yeah, he said they beat up on all these top 25 teams, and Jake replied, well, what top 25 teams are you talking about? They beat Nebraska, who was ranked at the time, but they finished the year 6-6. And other than that, I don't think they beat another top 25 team. So
no.
A really weird thing for Indiana's head coach to say, and then not only does he say that, but they lose, and they lose 27-17 in a game that really wasn't close because they scored some garbage time touchdowns.
No,
but
the score does not tell the story. I think that their offense looked abysmal last night.
Yeah, not a good start for the college football playoff because you're talking about expanding to 12 teams, so it should theoretically be more competitive, right? Letting more people in, but I mean, geez, it looks like that should have been Alabama, right? At least.
Yeah, no.
Or BYU. I mean, if I'm being honest.
There's always going to be the argument. I think, even if, obviously, Penn State and SMU happening at this moment, even if SMU goes and has a stinker, which I think so far it's been a close one.
Penn State up 14-0 right now. They actually just had a pick six.
Well, never mind then.
Second
I take
quarter
that
just
back.
started. We'll see, though. There's still, second quarter just started, so
Still
a lot of
plenty
football
of
left
time.
to be played.
Absolutely. But there's always going to be the argument, Alabama should have been in.
Yeah, I know.
We're never going to get past that.
Well, if Alabama wants in, they should not have 3 losses. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Don't lose to Oklahoma.
Don't lose to Oklahoma.
Don't lose to Kansas.
Yeah,
BYU.
Exactly. Win the games that you should win, and you won't have a problem getting in. So that's that. Good round of technical files today. Coming up next, Alex, I want to jump into this big slate of games we've got today. I want to talk some NFL. I want to talk some college football playoff. We'll go through all of it. Stay tuned. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.